Keeping on working on factoring trinomials, let's factor x squared minus 5x plus 6. Again, we're going to have the two sets of parentheses with an x at the beginning. And to figure out what goes after the x's, I need to find two numbers whose product is 6 and whose sum is negative 5. Notice that in order for the two numbers I'm looking for to add up to negative 5, at least one of them has to be negative. If I add two positives, I'm not going to get a negative. However, I want them to multiply to be positive 6. And if one's negative and one's positive, I'm going to get a negative product, not a positive product. So that tells me I need them both to be negative. So I need a negative and a negative. Again, I know I need at least one negative so that they add up to negative 5, but in order for them to multiply to be a positive, they've got to then both be negative. So two numbers that multiply to be 6 and add up to negative 5, that sounds like negative 2 and negative 3 to me. So what goes in our parentheses then is minus 2 and minus 3. Or you can put minus 3 and minus 2. It doesn't matter what order you write them in. As always, we can check our answer. If I FOIL out x minus 2 times x minus 3, I get x squared minus 3x minus 2x plus 6, because negative 2 times negative 3 is a positive 6. And combining like terms in the middle then, I get x squared minus 5x plus 6 as desired. Just to clarify, my check is not my answer. You can do that off on scratch paper. I don't need to see it. The answer is the multiplication problem. Let's try another one. Let's try factoring x squared plus x minus 6. So I'm going to have parentheses with my variable at the beginning. What goes in there with the variable? Well, I need to find two numbers whose product is negative 6 and that add up to the coefficient on the x term, which in this case is the invisible 1. Now, because the product has to be negative 6, one of the numbers has to be positive and one of them has to be negative. That's the only way you can get a negative product. So I'm looking for two numbers, one positive and one negative, that add up to be positive 1. So some type of 6 and 1 or some type of 2 and 3, but any positives or negatives with 6s and 1s is not going to add up to 1. So it's got to be something like a 3 and a 2. Let's make the 3 positive and the 2 negative, because that way they add up to positive 1. So I'll have x plus 3, x minus 2. And again, you can FOIL that out to check. Let's try x squared plus 2x plus 2. Now I'm looking for two numbers whose product is the 2 on the end and whose sum is the 2 on the x. Well, let's see. To have the product be 2, the only possibility is a 2 and a 1. But a 2 and a 1 are going to add up to 3, not 2. So there are no two numbers I can find that will multiply to be 2 and add up to be 2, which tells us that no factorization is possible. Next, let's look at factoring x squared minus 3x minus 40. So I need to find two numbers whose product is negative 40 and whose sum is negative 3. Again, for the product to be negative, I need one positive and one negative. Let's see, 40 could be 40 times 1, that won't add up to any kind of 3. Or it could be 20 times 2, that's not going to do it either. It could be 10 times 4, can that add up to a 3? Nope. What about 5 times 8? Oh, that looks good. So a 5 and an 8. Let's see, I need the 8 to be negative so that they add up to negative 3. So my factorization is going to be x plus 5 times x minus 8. Or I'll mention again, it doesn't matter what order you write the factors in. That would be the same thing as x minus 8 times x plus 5. And as always, you can check by multiplying it out. Last, let's factor 5x squared plus 10x minus 15. Notice that this expression has a GCF that we can take out. And as I mentioned earlier, you absolutely need to take out a GCF if there is one. So we can take out a 5. That's going to leave us an x squared plus a 2x minus a 3. And now we'll factor the x squared plus 2x minus 3. So I need to find two numbers whose product is negative 3 and whose sum is 2. Let's see, that would be what, a 3 and a 1 of some kind. I guess I want the 3 positive and the 1 negative, because if the 3 was negative, so if I had negative 3 and positive 1, they'd add up to negative 2. And I don't want negative 2, I want positive 2. That's why I'm having the 3 be positive and the 1 be negative. So I just put in x plus 3 and x minus 1. Don't forget the 5 out front. That's a really common mistake. But if I go to check my answer and I don't have the 5, it's not going to come out right.